The whole world is waiting for Elon Musk to save us from climate change by whisking us off to a wonderfully terraformed Mars. And I think there's something wrong about that, because it's quite disempowering. And so when you find too much enthusiasm in one direction, it's a philosophical duty to be the Socrates and to attempt takedowns. Well, what happens if there is an anti-aging breakthrough, but in a way the world is structured such that only, this would be really bad, but only the bad people get the drugs and the therapies. And I think that would be morally terrible, and it doesn't have to happen, but it could happen. Maybe we should write a debate book.
Yeah.
I'll take the side of death.
Many of our previous guests have been excited about the prospect of radically extending our lives, and some have been optimistic about the prospect of achieving this in our lifetime, perhaps even within a few decades. We are Levity, the real longevity podcast, after all. Today's guest thinks that we should be less excited about radical longevity and radical enhancements in general, and he does not think radical life extension is on the horizon. Nicholas Agar is a New Zealand philosopher specializing in ethics. As of 2022, he is a professor of ethics at the University of Waikato. He is a prolific writer and the author of How to Think About Progress and Truly Human Progress, to mention two recent titles. Nicholas Agar, welcome to Levity.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, New Zealand, I don't even know what season you're in.
Well, yes, it's getting warm, but getting warm in New Zealand is always relative. So we specialize in bad weather.
So this time we get to do a morning interview, and you're in the evening there, right?
I am in the evening. Yep. It's the other side of the. Who would have thought? No one told us it was a globe. But yeah, we're on the other side.
It appears that way for
Yes,
sure.
as soon as you start denying radical enhancement, you end up disbelieving everything.
Oh no, really? Well,
Not quite, but
yeah,
it would make me a good comedic sort of opponent, wouldn't it?
yeah, yeah. So, in preparation for this show, I read this new title of yours, How to Think About Progress. And then it has a subtitle, A Skeptic's Guide to Technology, a Skeptic's Guide. So, as I said before, a lot of the people we've had on this show are very boosterish about the power of technology and also about where we're going over this century. What do you think of our society's, what you call, obsession about the future?
Well, can I make a philosopher's
Yeah,
move of beginning by going meta, and normal human beings hate it when philosophers do this. But in general, I think that when you have a debate, and on one side are people who are very enthusiastic, and these are also include people who are trying to sell you stuff. So I think we had a one-sided take on how great Facebook would be for us, because most of the people we listened to were trying to sell it. And so I think in general it's bad for a debate when, if you find too many enthusiasts, it's be the Socrates and be contrary. It's like whatever. If everyone was a pro-deathist, I'd be there saying I want to live to be 1,000, because I think the debate would require that. So maybe it's just that your arguments are too impressive.
you're making an argument in the book that I can sympathize with a lot, which is you're saying that we shouldn't always expect the best solution to a problem to be technological necessarily, and we certainly shouldn't wait for technology to come in and rescue us.
Yes. I mean, I think that I believe that quite strongly. The whole world is waiting for Elon Musk to save us from climate change by whisking us off to a wonderfully terraformed Mars. And I think there's something wrong about that, because it's quite disempowering. And so when you find too much enthusiasm in one direction, it's a philosophical duty to be the Socrates and to attempt takedowns. Now, it would be wonderful if Elon Musk would ever read anything I wrote about him, just short things generally, but why would he ever bother? He doesn't need to do that. So, it means that people like me have to shout louder.
In the book, you have an example of how the corona crisis was handled in various ways. And you were critical of the strategy of waiting for the perfect vaccine.
Yes, but I feel at the time that I wrote that was written, those initial lines were written at the time when we finally had the fix, which were mRNA vaccines, and they were just going to make it go away. So line up, get your jab, and nothing to worry about. And it would just become one of those nice little victories that science occasionally delivers. But it turns out not to have been that way. And I think that in general, it's a mistake to be too enthusiastic about scientific fixes, especially when, I mean, science, tech, big tech, longevity tech, has such brilliant marketers. They're really good at selling. And it's like, if I want to sell you a house, but you may be happy to hear, if you're considering buying houses, New Zealand's property market is now currently crashing. And now could be a good time to buy. But if there's too much enthusiasm, it's a philosophical duty to actually point to the other side, because it's almost certainly the case that people are overlooking things.
I think from our point of view, there's no enthusiasm at all. There's very little enthusiasm for life extension. I mean, longevity is for most people supplements and eating well and exercising and trying to, I don't know what they're hoping to achieve, but the enthusiasm for actually doing something about this problem is very small, and the investments in the field are abysmal. So what do you mean by enthusiasm for longevity?
I think it's a great pitch. It's a great story. And so, I mean, I suspect that that's what I mean by enthusiasm. So we're inclined, I think, to understate the difficulty of achieving these ends. So you probably know Aubrey de Grey or know of him. So he had his taxonomy of the 7 deadly things, and they all looked fantastically fixable and imminently fixable. And then you read that one of the deadly things is called cancer, and so that's just item, 4 on the list. And that's in principle quite easy to fix, isn't it? Because it's just uncontrolled cell division, and we know how to kill cells. And then there's just a technological problem for working out, a technical issue of working out how to kill the right cells. But that's, in the age of AI, that should be easier. So I guess in a way that's what I think. I mean, there probably is a perfect version of Mars that I'd like to live on. But when you look at there's almost a mismatch between the enthusiasm and the means, the enthusiasm for a goal and the means that are offered to promote that goal. So I don't know, it's interesting. How much should we spend on trying to live to be 1,000 then how much should we spend on trying to live on Mars? I think those are difficult questions.
Well, we have a suggestion that we should spend about 1% of global GDP on trying to live to 1,000. But right now, if you look at the Gray's project, for example, in terms of funding, it's almost nothing that the Gray has received. So the interest is not so much there.
But it's interesting that, isn't it? It's interesting. These are different. I mean, I love philosophical arguments that actually ask questions about money. So I loved it when he originally wrote his book and said, put a number on it, rather than just saying, oh, this is going to be quite expensive. But there's lots of things that are quite expensive that we do. Building a bridge is quite expensive, and it's often worth doing. But he was prepared to put a number on it. And I think at the point that he initially offered a number, it seemed like a lot of money. Of course, we now just laugh at it. I think it was initially $1 billion to end aging. And I'm sure you gentlemen would think that that's not nearly enough. But certainly way, way less than 1% of GDP, global GDP. But so I think that says something about the way we think about goals and the way we tend to oversimplify. I mean, our enthusiasm leads us to oversimplify the steps. So in a way, it would be great. I mean, if it was just $1 billion to live to be 1,000, yeah, I'm all in. I mean, speaking as someone who doesn't have $1 billion, so if I'm all in, then don't be too excited. But yeah, but then spending several $1 billion to not achieve that seems a different proposition.
Yeah, I think we have to check that number. I'm not sure where that number comes from, because the sense hallmarks that you mentioned, the 7 deadly sins, these are actually categories of 7 repair paradigms. It has nothing to do with cancer. Cancer is downstream of what Aubrey is talking about. So just so we make that clear.
It's on his
Yeah.
list. So if you look at
Yeah,
the,
sure. Cancer is something we have to fix if we're going to solve aging. But on the 7 hallmarks, the 7 categories in the SENSE program, cancer is not one of them.
well, it will. I mean, you could be if you don't fix that, you're going to have a pretty miserable 150s. I mean, you're
Sure.
going to be
Yeah,
riddled
you have
with
to fix.
cancer.
Yeah, it's just that the root causes that actually causes all of these different symptoms that we call cancer or dementia or heart disease. That's what he's aiming to repair, so to speak.
Yep,
Cancer is
and
downstream
they're all.
symptom of that.
I mean, I believe. I mean, I think his characterization is great. I mean, they all sound fixable,
Yeah,
and it's just, are we talking about 22nd century science or 29th century science?
yeah. That we don't know.
Aubrey's program falls under the category of what you call manifesto science, rather than normal science. And you're not against manifesto science per se. It's just you think it needs to not rely on miracles along the way or something of that sort. Could you explain that distinction?
Well, I guess it's one. I mean, there is, in principle, a tech solution for almost everything. And we philosophers love exploring them because it's quite provocative to think that there's a technological solution for loneliness. Because that's something that you can actually, that solution could work even if everyone just hated you. Because it would be a tech solution. So I think there's a lot of, in principle, tech solutions. And these are very seductive. Because they don't require me to somehow successfully turn this conversation into a pitch for Peter and Patrick to be my friends and to keep me company when I'm lonely. So Yeah, I don't know how I'll achieve that, given that I'm in New Zealand. But yes, so they're seductive, and I guess that we know that as soon as it's an in principle buildable technology, there is probably some that may be difficult to characterize, but there's some. I mean, we're not talking about time travel, traveling backwards in time. Yeah, that's, I don't, if you're spending money on that, then you made a mistake. But yeah, spending money on ending aging doesn't belong in that category. It's just that there are other things to spend money on. And at the moment, it seems that we really like spending money on weapons of war. And at least we know they work.
I think my view is that if you look at the proportion and the scale of things, to worry about public spending, for example, on basic biology of aging, which is just a few fractions of what we spent on research, public money on research, you should compare that to what is spent, for example, in Afghanistan, which is 2-3 trillion, thousands of billions.
Yes.
And that's
that was
so to quibble about, we shouldn't spend so much on fighting aging. Well, it's so little compared to completely wasteful spending.
Yes, it's in a way, there's much of the spending on Afghanistan, it would have been better just to take that money and put it in a hole and burn it. It would have been better to just throw the money away, because it was, yeah, every dollar spent on that war set us back. So it's not the case that anti-aging fits into that category, but I still think that there's a lot of things you can spend money on.
Still, I mean, aging is the mother of diseases and so on. So I feel that the potential upside is just so enormous compared to just doing science the standard way of focusing on each disease.
Right, but it's interesting, isn't it, when we look at the practicalities and we ask questions of they're not exciting questions, but questions of the type, who gets it and who doesn't? So in a way, if you were to, I mean, because in principle, I mean, it's like, I have the cure for cancer, it's in pill form, and it turns out that it costs 10 cents per pill. I mean, you can distribute that to everyone on the planet, but we know that that's not how capitalist economies would produce the cure for cancer.
Are you saying that we shouldn't have a cure for cancer because we don't distribute it equally?
No, but I think that if we did have the cure for cancer, it would be wonderful. I mean, that's just sour grapes, isn't it? There you are, you have this wonderful thing and I don't have it, so I'm going to deny you it. That seems wrong. But nevertheless, often it's the case that there are wonderful things that would be amazingly wonderful. I mean, even better if they were available to all. And it seems that it's a feature of the way that we pursue them means that they won't be. And so when I consider my excitement about, I mean, it would be good if we had, I mean, I know that there's nothing that prevents this from being the case, but 1,000-year life expectancies for everyone, or would we end up with a long period of transition where we get, I don't know, Peter Thiel and his friends get 1,000 years, and I hope they include you guys, because you've helped them, but other people get shorter lives.
I mean, if it really costs so many billions, this cure, that only TL and Musk can get it. I mean, personally, I wouldn't want them to die just because I can't have it. I mean, but I mean, I think that's just a scenario that's not at all likely. That it would cost so much.
No, well, but it's interesting though, isn't it? I mean, I'm less confident than you. And the main thing is, well, the main thing is that it's a mistake to think that, I mean, once you have it, here it is, I have a millennial, my lifespan I will live for 1,000 years unless if I can avoid being hit by a truck. And it would be, given what we know, I mean, how much money does Elon Musk need? And so once he has a life expectancy of 1,000, I think there are other things he'll want to do, and that those could, but these are just, we're in the realm of speculation. So I'm not claiming to know anything about any particular therapy, but I think there will be other things to spend money on that won't involve him going to Nigeria.
Well, I mean, he needs enough money to take us to Mars. I mean, that's his
Yes,
ambition.
and in his mind, which is more important, I think Mars.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, so
And once you've got to Mars, there's Proxima Centauri.
but I don't think just to hold on to that general thought that the distribution problem is good enough to now not pursue avenues that could give us a more robust health, age slower, and live longer. I mean, that doesn't make sense, I feel. Because, I mean, you could make the same
No.
argument about heart transplants and any other procedure.
Yes, yep, indeed. No, that's true. And many things are good, and they would be amazing if everyone instantaneously had them. But that's not the way that we distribute goods. And it's correct that once, I don't know, Peter Thiel is living to be 10,000. Well, it's true that whatever gave him that is applicable to any other human being. And it will, his achieving that milestone will mean it comes sooner for the rest of us.
Don't you feel that we have plenty of medicines that are broadly available to most people on the planet? And they are cheap?
Some are, but I think there are other medicines that are, by their very nature, expensive.
Mm.
And
But we've eradicated quite a few of those infectious diseases that killed a lot of humans just 100, 200 years ago.
that's true, and that's
Yeah.
something to celebrate.
Yeah.
And if that's the way to achieve millennial lifespans, if it's something like that, then I would think quite differently about it. But I suspect it's not the way that we'll do that.
Why?
Because finding out about smallpox and vaccinating people is just a different from, if you look at the Aubrey de Grey plan, it's quite a different project from that.
I guess he doesn't really know exactly how these medicines and therapies will end up, because we don't know if we have to tackle all of the different hallmarks of aging or different categories that he's made, if we need 7 or 10 therapies, or if we need 1 or 2. That's still unknown. So it's kind of hard to speculate about how difficult it actually would be to achieve this, how much it would cost in the end, and how difficult it would be to distribute it. But I think that if we're talking about, in the end, this is actually just saying that, you know what, we shouldn't have to die from cancer. We shouldn't have to die from heart disease. We shouldn't have to die from, no one should have to die from dementia or even get dementia, right? So I think those are pretty much in the arc of humanity's things that we want to achieve, right? But to say that they're going to cost this much or be this hard to distribute, we don't know that yet. We have no
No, we
idea.
don't. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know how difficult it's going to be to get to Mars.
Yeah, of course. But so how does one arrive at the conclusion that it's going to be difficult? Because you don't know that.
Well, it seems, yes, I don't know that. I'm a philosopher, and we spend all of our time talking through holes in our heads. But I speculate that, and in the same kind of way that I speculate that getting to Proxima Centauri is going to be harder than getting to the moon, just there's more involved. And for the same reason, I suspect that basically vaccinating against smallpox seems more
There was
an
there,
easier challenge.
yeah, but there was a time when biologists said that, aging, that's impossible. It's too difficult. We can't intervene. It's just a natural process of things. And then in the 90s, a brilliant scientist named Cynthia Kenyon actually managed to show that you can just knock out one gene in a worm and you double the lifespan. And everyone was, what? No, that's impossible. Who could have thought that that was possible? If you knock out one gene, you can double the lifespan of an organism. So it turned out it was quite simple to intervene in the aging process. Now, worms are not humans, but I guess it shows that we might think twice about being certain of stuff beforehand.
Yeah, no. Yes, let's not be certain. And how do I know? I mean, yes. Well, I mean, if I was here to tell you, I can tell you I've read all of Cynthia Kenyon's papers. I can tell you it's all rubbish. That would be nonsense. I don't know a single thing. I could say that, but you should just laugh at me. It's just, I suspect that sort of many problems have a habit, or many problems, especially those involving the biology of human beings. And I'm reading a fascinating but also terrifying book on something I suspect that you might be relevant, but all of the well-established science of Alzheimer's is largely based on fake, fraudulent science. And it shows you that, in a way, that's, I suspect, a feature of exciting goals in human biology, is that there are challenges, and that when we want them so very badly, so in this case there's an awareness that in America there's a lot of money that people will spend, insurance companies will spend, basically finding cures for Alzheimer's. And so you can see that sort of this simple picture, I mean, gosh, again, this is just me. Yeah, here I've already debunked Cynthia Kenyon without knowing a single thing about her science. So I'm going to debunk all of the latest Alzheimer's research. But it seems that there's a problem with the dominant paradigm, which seems so straightforward, because even I've heard of amyloid plaques that accumulate, and it turns out that it's a very seductive picture, and there are therapies that are very expensive that can reduce them, but it seems that the expectation that they have any measurable effect on the lives of people with Alzheimer's was not met. And there's certainly a lot of money in once you spend a ton of money, a shit ton of money, I think is the technical term, on an anti-Alzheimer's drug, well, you really want people to keep on paying for it. And they won't keep on paying for it if they know it has no effect.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of structural explanations for why there's so much hype around all kind of technologies, biotechnology and others. And some of them are institutional. I mean, if you have invested your career in a certain paradigm, it just has to work.
It has to work. And it turns out you will cheat to make it work because you are personally invested in it.
And if there are hundreds of other startups with ideas, your ideas has to stand out. They can't be modest and so on. And if you're a reporter, you have to put something exciting in your magazine. So we know that is the world we're living in. But I mean, you can't pick out longevity science and say this is a thing we shouldn't be doing because of all the hype or something like that, right?
But it's interesting, isn't it? As soon as there's hype, there's a future in which people do kind of go, because, I mean, 1% of global GDP, it sounds like a trifle. I personally would like to have it. But I mean, once that money's available and it's committed, I understand your enthusiasm about life extension, but I bet it will attract an army of fraudulent claim. Well, that's a speculation, and an army of people short selling companies that invest or commit to making these products because people will pay a lot for them. And I think that's something that actually, so in a way, the paradigm of basically just scientists as dispassionately interested in the truth or pursuing the truth, turns out I don't think it's true. They do. But when large sums of money are around, many of them don't live up to their ideals.
I mean, you have a sobering history of cancer research in the book from being like
yes.
this war. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like I love all of it's a recurrent thing, isn't it? It's sort of, there are things that we do over and over and over again. It's like, oh, this is right now the world is looking a little bit like the build up to World War One. Didn't we do? We did that before World War One. So here it seems we have got the same pattern, and yet we'll just repeat it. And it seems the need to have whatever the cure for cancer is, I would like it. I'm sitting here. There's a fucking trillion cells of me, and how many of them are? I'm sure half of them are precancerous right now, and just waiting, conspiring to kill me.
So
I would like to be able to zap them with the cure.
So I mean, what is the takeaway? I mean, as you write yourself, war is the kind of metaphor we use because it's like a communal enterprise against an identified enemy. I mean, that's why I wouldn't mind the war against aging, for example, just because of that. It's something meant to mobilize in a broad way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, despite all the imperfections and the biases, I mean, we made tremendous amount of progress. Of course, we doubled the average human lifespan over the last 100 years or so.
Yes,
with the biggest
simple
gains
things.
in Africa and other poor parts of the world the last
Yes.
20 years.
Clean drinking water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And that turns out quite a simple fix.
don't we just have to accept that yes, we are prone to hype, but we need people who can see the future, and we go there, and it's a moonshot, and if we come half the way, it's good. Anti-aging science is better than a moonshot in some sense, because halfway to moon isn't much, but just curing some of the hallmarks or so on is something that would prevent people from getting, for example, perhaps Alzheimer's or etc.
Yes. Yes, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've talked about, I mean, we've talked about money, haven't we? And I guess whenever you're talking about money, it has to be the case that those are difficult, because money by its very nature is finite. And so whenever there's a claim on money, I mean, it ought to be the case that there are people saying, well, yeah, you're asking for 1% of global GDP. I don't know. Here are some other things I think that we should use. I would love for the world to commit to things, but in a way, if my list was slightly different from yours, would you accept that?
We think not dying is a huge human priority.
But do you believe you will die?
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess it's interesting.
That's always the heat
isn't
death
it?
of the
I mean,
universe. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a long way off. But and I'm sure you can have a good time doing that. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you are a bit of a pessimist about and the overselling of some of these things, you might say, well, there's spending quite a lot of money and achieving the end of not dying, but then there's an alternative that we have limited control over. It's basically spending that same amount of money with the hope that we could not die and then dying anyway according to the same schedule. And still having spent the money. Whereas at least if you know what it's like to build a cathedral.
Well, I mean, if we attack
mean,
the
you might
hallmarks
start
of
to-
aging, at least we'll become more resistant to certain diseases and be healthier, even if we don't have to live enormously much longer.
I mean, and I think that would be good. So in a way, you're right. I mean, I think you've mentioned many of the examples. I mean, there's certainly money that we spend on medicine. I mean, what do medicines do? Well, they should, by their very nature, delay death, and that in itself is, you might say, well, this measles vaccine is actually an anti-aging vaccine. Well, it's actually what I mean anti-aging. It's not intervening in any of these things, but it is addressing something that shortens lives. So you can call that anti-aging. But I guess it's not as fun.
I mean, as we like to say, with most interventions, we're not really saving anyone's life. It's all life prolongation.
It is. Yes, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think there are interesting questions to be had about how long your life needs to be in order to be a satisfactory and good one. So there are certainly lives that I see that have become kind of pointless.
Do you think that that's how we should measure life? That there's like a certain period of time, and in that period of time, it could be short, it could be long, and it should be some measure of satisfactory to decide when we should die? I don't get that. Can you explain that?
Well, I'm thinking, what do we view as a good life? And
Why is that? What does that have to do with how long we should live?
well, I just think if we set as our goal giving as many people good lives, I mean, it may be the case that, I mean, how long do you have to live? I mean, my father's still alive. I think you won't be listening to this. He's in his late 80s. I mean, I think what he does say, he's had enough life.
Yeah, but that's that argument comes up all the time, and I view it as a fallacy because if you're in your 80s today, you are probably frail. You can't do the things that you love to do earlier in your life, and so
That's
on and
it.
so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess if your father would be like a 30-year-old today, he would be going on about his life, making plans, doing the things that he loves to do. So he wouldn't even have that argument with you. That only comes up at a certain age when you're at a certain frailty, you have diseases. Of course you don't want that.
So my
So, I
father,
mean,
if
I'm 48. I don't go around thinking about, I've had a good life. Maybe I should, that this is enough. I think about what am I going to do next?
yes, I
That's
think everyone should. In fact,
yeah,
probably people should
but that's
think
not
about
my
that.
point. My point is that I should be able to sit in my sofa watching TV year out, year in, year out if I want to. That shouldn't inform when I should die.
No,
This whole idea that we're talking about quality of life as some sort of, he had a good life, so now it's time to die. I don't get that. Who decides that?
well, I mean,
Why do we
let me
keep on
ask-
insisting on this good life? What if you had a rubbish life?
yeah, and I think many of the longest lives probably are quite rubbish.
Why?
And, well, because people fill them with things that they, upon reflection, don't really enjoy, and that's just basically listening to them. I don't know. I think my father, if I gave him a therapy that turned him into a 30-year-old, I certainly wouldn't want to hang out with him. But and you're right that basically yes, if he was doing ultra marathons and on Copacabana Beach having caipirinhas, yes, he would. He's unable to do that, but
You don't have these discussions with 30-year-olds. Why not? Did you have a good life? Yeah, why do you ask?
well, but that's an interesting way that we think about life and the way it ends. So there
Yeah.
are. I mean, it's well, if you, Peter, if you were to die tomorrow, what would your assessment of your life be? Would it have been tragic? I mean, I know you have more to do.
I will always have more to do.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah.
And I guess my father, you're right, he's older and he feels he doesn't have much more to do. But if you had the pill that would rejuvenate him to a very youthful, boyish 48, then he would be excited.
Yeah.
And he would definitely take the pill. So, I mean, but, I mean, it's a little bit like, I mean, I would also like $1 billion just to have and spend. But I don't beat myself up. I don't actually feel that I missed out for not having $1 billion. And most of the do you know, you probably do know some billionaires.
Not sure that I do. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah, but I mean, in a way, I think there's many things like that where you say, so there's trying to achieve a goal and judging. I mean, if you set a goal and you live in the shadow of not having achieved it. I don't think that's the way my father thinks about his life.
Hmm.
He had a good time. He'd like more fun. He was always a hedonist. And I don't think he ever thought anything beyond the most abstract way about extending his life.
I just don't think the goodness of life is contingent on when we should die. I don't see it doesn't follow for me.
But we do make judgments. Do you think the judgments that we make are veridical about whether a life was well or badly lived, or?
No, of course not. But that doesn't mean the quality of life is important because we don't want suffering, right? It's hard to suffer, and we don't want suffering. So that's why we aim to have a better quality of life. But if I lived a good life up until now, let's say I did. Let's say I've felt that I've achieved a lot of things and that I'm all over happy with what I've done in this period of time. And let's say that most people, let's say the maximum lifespan was 49. So I knew that I was going to die the next year. I would think that it was terrible.
Yep.
I wouldn't say that, yeah, I had a good life, so now it's time to die. No, of course not.
No. I mean, I don't think anyone thinks now is time to die, except in cases in which they're suffering, and I guess in a way we hope that to treat that suffering. But many people accept, nevertheless, that they will die, and that I think in a way, I think probably people should occasionally, I mean, this would be too maudlin and depressing, wouldn't it? I mean, if a bus hit me tomorrow, what assessment would I make of my life? And believe me, I don't want to be hit by that bus, but I would still think, disappointing, but it doesn't seem tragic.
I mean, that's because we're used to it. I mean, it's like you're a serf living under complete control of the master, and then you would come up with reasons for why it's acceptable. And my master isn't the worst of them all.
Yes, yes, he's quite generous
Yeah,
sometimes, and that there are scraps, and sometimes they even come from his own
yeah.
plate. And yes, that we accept we have to, because I guess all of us actually find ourselves in situations that are partly analogous to that.
But it's a false
I mean, there are
conscience,
things.
I believe. I mean,
Yep.
it's fake. I mean, death is a terrible threat to us as individuals, and it's every death basically is a tragedy. Although, I mean, in some cases, there's too much suffering to make life worth going on. But it's still, even in that case, it's almost like you look at, if you have diabetes, you have to amputate your leg. In some sense, well, that was good that you had the amputation, but it's still tragic that you lost your leg, so to speak. Right?
So, I mean, we do seem to. It's right, isn't it? I mean, I certainly agree with you guys in terms of. I mean, it's part of our appeals to human nature kind of thing are always slightly fraudulent. But I mean, we do seem to enjoy spending money on war tech.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, for war technology.
Oh, yeah.
We enjoy, and that's, I guess, that's it's sort of an anti-aging technology, because that's an effective way to kill people. And there's certainly a lot of life shortening happening right now in Gaza and in Ukraine. And I mean, you could sort of say I mean, it would be a good way to market. I mean, it would be an unexpected way to market your things, to say, well, this is actually, we need to, I mean, almost like sort of step one should be stop the drones and the shells and the mines, because they definitely shorten lives. And so yeah, I mean, in a way, I kind of like what you're doing. I mean, in terms of like turning this into a question about what we spend money on. And I think it's good that we have different priorities.
This episode of Levity is brought to you by Vitalism Foundation.
Vitalism Foundation is a non-profit with a revolutionary mission to achieve unlimited lifespans in peak health.
It's a community of action driven by vitalism, a new moral philosophy whose first tenet is that life and health are good, death is humanity's core problem, and aging its primary agent. They're one of the few groups that truly understand aging as the emergency that it is.
Vitalism's goal is nothing short of monumental: to allocate 1% of global GDP to this project. It's ambitious, but it's exactly what's needed to tackle aging head-on.
As a member of Vitalism, you'll get access to a private community, exclusive content, and invites to special conferences. Plus, you'll receive insider prices on longevity wellness services from Vitalism's mission-aligned partners.
But more than that, you will be supporting a mission that's too important to leave to others to tackle.
So, you should really join us. Follow the link in the description below. For a limited time, you get 30% off forever. Just use the promo code Levity at checkout.
Again, that's 30% off forever with the promo code Levity. Let's make a difference together. Do you think it is a cope to say things like he had a good life, or I mean, some people say she was old. I mean,
Yep.
because the truth, the way I see it, is that, well, if she had a good life or he had a good life, then they were good for other people too. Their existence was good for other people
Yes.
too.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so not only do they lose everything they managed to build, I mean, I feel personally, maybe it's me, but I mean, you're trying to improve every year. It's like you're working on yourself, right? Or you're working on your relationships, and you're constructing something. And to have that just erased, and to have people just erased like that, and then pretend that it's okay because they were good. I mean, if they were good, then we really lost something, and they lost something.
Yes, there seem to be so many aspects of our world that lead to a lot of lives being worse than they otherwise could be. And I think wouldn't it be good if we had some kind of global accounting for all of the things that made human lives. You'd look at all of the 8 billion lives and look at all of the things that make them predictably worse than they should be or could be. I think anti-aging technology could be among those factors. And, I think that's, so yes, I think your claims are certainly not they're not, let's spend a lot of money on time travel technology, because that would be an absurd thing to spend money on. But, so they're there, so they're not in that category. I mean,
It's time travel, but in the other direction.
yes, yeah, that would be the difficult thing. Yes, we know which way to go.
Excellent. So
Maybe we should write a debate book.
Yeah.
I'll take the side of death. And then
you know what? You are in the majority. I
I'll
have to
take the
say.
side of death.
Yeah, you are in the
It's all
majority.
I will-
Most people are outside of where Patrick and I stand, and that's the majority. Some of my family, most of my friends, they also take the side of death. So we're kind of accustomed to that.
So I will try. Don't worry. I'm going to take the side of death in a way they don't expect.
Oh,
So
that sounds
what
good.
if I argue that many people should actually die tomorrow? That their lives are kind of pointless and of no value to them. And then, we could compromise. I would seem absurd, but I would make as good and effective a case I can. And I guess my argument would be the intergenerational injustice, that sort of the world that we have. Well, I don't know. How do young people become academics, for example? Just thinking about being an academic, it's pretty difficult. It's easy to get sold a PhD degree. It's very difficult to end up having the life that I had. And I do think it sort of requires people like me to not be there, so people like them can do it.
That's one common argument, that there's gerontocracy and we have to make room for the next generation and so on. Whenever I hear that kind of argument, it's just absurd to me that our solution is death. Our solution is to actually kill people.
Well, they can kill themselves.
They can kill themselves. Yeah, but
listen, I don't want
yeah,
your
okay.
professorship if it's I don't want you to.
Don't you think?
Right now I have it.
Of all
That
the
was
possible
lovely play.
solutions we could have, don't you think that we could come up
Yeah.
with something a little better than to actually kill
Yeah.
people?
Well, we like doing that.
Well, I
No,
don't.
we're against that.
Well, we spend a lot of money. I mean, if extraterrestrial explorers and I don't know, whatever, they find the ruins of our civilization, they look at the techs we built, they may not find much of a trace of the anti-aging tech that you guys are working on, but they'll find a lot of killing tech, and they'll know what mattered to us, and killing other human beings was something that we really enjoy.
I like to continue with Peter's question here a bit, because, I mean, it strikes me as a very brutal way of looking at things to say that a professor must die so that the PhD student gets a job. It's his turn now, etc. This turnover. I mean, when I look at my personal life, my dad who passed away this year, he was a piano player, composer. Well, I mean, his death, who exactly did I prepare the way for? I mean, it's... And also, I mean, what he had built up, his internal world, his way of looking at music and so on, I regard that as irreplaceable. I think it's almost like a very brutal Darwinian view that, you know, the healthy and the young must push away the old, and the old must die, you know.
What if the older are quite? I mean, your dad was probably lovely, but what if many and it's so basically in New Zealand, older people own all of the real estate, and they ain't giving that up, so they're keeping it.
And
So,
who gets it when they die?
uh, well, that's a good question, but they are living longer, and they're basically. But yeah, so New Zealand would need a turnover. It goes to their children eventually.
Yeah, so
Um,
then the problem is not solved anyhow.
no, but it's like yes, they don't. They're holding on to it, and when children are expected to come and I don't know, buy a home, get a job which doesn't exist, and then start a family, those options don't seem to be as available. And generational turnover, I think, would help that.
So the problem is that older people have worked and got themselves a home,
Hmm.
and so more, of course, more older people who have had more time and more opportunity to buy homes will have more homes, and
Yep.
then this is an apparent problem, and then the best solution is that they get sick and die. I mean, that's not such a good
The
argument.
thing, yeah, but the thing with this is that if we make the thought experiment that aging wasn't a thing, we actually didn't die from aging. So to die, you had to be extremely unlucky to die in an accident or to die from violence and so on. You wouldn't actually. Nobody would introduce a killing program to solve this problem. We would think of every other solution. We wouldn't introduce a killing problem. But
Oh.
now that we have a killing solution, we
Hmm.
kind of step back and say that, yeah, you know what? Let's keep on having that solution because it's always been that way.
Hmm.
So this would never come up if we didn't have aging.
The killing solution.
Yeah.
Well, is the killing? I mean, I'm thinking
Well,
of
I mean, we've had
weapons of
killing
war.
solutions for ideology reasons, right?
Yep.
And we call them atrocities, and we would like to never go in that direction and so on again. But you know, I don't think anybody's political policy would actually be to you know kill people in order to get them to give up their houses.
But you see, you've just found a very stark way to put it, and you've made it kind of absurdist, which, by the way, I love. So I'm the kind of philosopher who now thinks, "Thank you, Peter. How can I argue for that?" Because it's only through arguing for it that we can explore its absurdities. So yes, um, it's fun to advocate these positions. I'm the guy who put liberal on the front of eugenics and argued for liberal eugenics. That was fun.
Do you still believe in eugenics as an individual right?
Well, less so. So I've moderated, and I now see the other side. But I'm a liberal. I do think that people should be able to make their own decisions about how they lead their lives,
Perhaps for the
and it shouldn't
audience,
be.
if you could just briefly describe that view that you put forward. It's about 20 years ago, right? Or...
Yeah, it's a while ago. It was so I was sitting down in New Zealand, and who cares about a New Zealand philosopher? And I thought, well, you know, I don't even have the internet to get on. So I'm just going to try and find something that everyone recognizes as evil, such as eugenics, which is the program of basically improving humanity by kind of applying selective breeding techniques to human beings, deciding who gets to reproduce and who doesn't. And obviously, lots of bad things were done in the name of eugenics. I thought, well, what happens if I put the word liberal on the front and then advocate it? And I found out that if you do that, it makes people quite annoyed. And that, believe it or not, professionally worked for me. So, but then I realized that basically I enjoyed arguing for it. And then, yes, so the idea that basically what makes eugenics wrong is that some authority, such as the state, makes a decision about how or whether you should reproduce, and that now that we have, gene editing and related technologies, it ought to be the case that individuals can make their own choices about the characteristics of their children. That was the liberal move. So just putting liberal on the so they're still trying to pick the best children. In a sense, I suspect that you guys would appreciate, because you talked about genetic markers that influence longevity. So I guess, do you have kids or?
I do.
Yep. And would you modify their genomes to include some of these edits, or
Well, she's almost a teenager now,
probably
so
too late?
yeah. I would probably, if it was available, I would probably look very hard at certain diseases. But I guess that, I struggle with this because, it's interesting. We're veering off track here maybe, but, there's Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And people are often, when they're expecting a child, quite afraid of that.
Yes.
There's a certain risk. And especially we were a bit older as parents. No, it didn't turn out to be that way, but if I had the choice, would I have done it to make sure that my child didn't have Down syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
And what do we say about humans? Why is it not allowed? Why do we not want people to have Down syndrome? So that's a struggle for me to should we, is it ethical to eradicate Down syndrome?
So
That's, yeah.
my view remains that it would be. I mean, because it's a disease state, and it also informs the identities of people.
Mm.
But I mean, diabetes also informs the identities of people, and I think a cure for diabetes would be wonderful. And I
Yeah.
guess that would mean that we always, whenever the progress, there are always things you lose. And then you went, oh gosh, I mean, in a way, Down's syndrome, there are valuable experiences there. That I think it's possible to balance the goods with the upsides and the downsides. And I think that when in general you remove something, so you did some kind of, not a genetic modification, but a chromosomal edit to remove the extra copy of the chromosome,
Mm.
I think that would be a good thing.
I actually have a much easier example because it's not so ethically fraught maybe. So I have a blood disease called thalassemia,
Mm-hmm.
and it's inheritable. And the reason I mention it is because it's actually quite easy to remove with gene editing.
Yep.
Now I don't have the worse variant of it, so I'm asymptomatic. But I guess that would be a no-brainer for me if I could edit out my blood disease. If it was the worse version of it, I would do it in a heartbeat, I guess.
Well, here's the twist, the liberal eugenics thing. Rather than having the state say, well, we don't want thalassemia, and then have someone say, well, I have thalassemia and my life is wonderful. But then if you instead say, well, the state doesn't make those decisions, the state provides the tools to individual parents. And if you as a father decided you valued that existence, then I guess it would be an interesting decision. And I suspect many people would choose not to have a child who had thalassemia.
Yeah.
And I think that would be perfectly defensible. So in a way, the people who made the reverse decision, so there are always philosophical counterexamples, because people do make the reverse decisions. You know, the deaf parents who want a deaf child, they're the ones who should explain. It should be more difficult for them. It should be easier for the parent to say, I don't want a child who has thalassemia. Why? It's an identity. No, it also has these effects on the way people live their lives. So I think it should be easier it should be harder for someone to say, if I'm deaf, I want a deaf child, because we would have a better relationship.
Yeah. I guess you could have avoided the word eugenics, but you chose it anyway.
Well, you've got to do that, because otherwise, who cares? It's a liberal position on genetic modification, which even when I was writing, were dime a dozen. That's why. I mean, it's sort of, in a way, why not? I mean, you life extensionists, you're provocateurs. I mean, because, in fact, you've identified the problem, that there's not enough money going to your cause. And so you have to be provocateurs, because the money won't just walk to your doorstep.
We are true believers also.
Yes, but that's good. You're true it's great to be a true believer, but you've also got to be a provocative true believer if you want the money.
It's actually not that simple, I think, because at least in the world of grant money, if you are too provocative, they're not interested, and they won't give you the funding to do the research that's needed.
Well,
so just look at, we've been talking about Aubrey, for example. I mean, he has relied on philanthropy and private donations all his life, because he doesn't get any grant money to do his.
Well, he spent his own inheritance on it.
So the question, if you look at, this book by a science journalist on the money, on the way the pursuit of grant money in Alzheimer's research has distorted science and corrupted it. So yes, in a way, the question of will this get a grant, can I get a grant for that, seems often to lead to bad outcomes. Yeah.
I mean, what we hear from our guests who are scientists in the field is that they have to formulate their proposals in a way that is conservative enough, and they can't even be upfront with they're actually trying to slow aging or affect aging directly, but they have to look at some other indication and say this is what we are trying to do. That is, they even have to hide their anti-aging agenda, so to speak.
Yeah, but that's interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose, whenever if it's, here's a new therapy for, we've just isolated insulin. Oh, well, that's an anti-aging therapy. No, it wasn't marketed that way. It was instead marketed, there's a terrible disease called diabetes that kills people. So, yes, I can see that when you're out there being the provocateur, getting attention, when you write the grant, you probably do write it in dry, deliberately boring language. Here's something that predictably kills people. We have a plan to do something about it. I don't think that would, and those words in itself aren't going to be a successful grant, but I think you can turn that into a grant. Because all of the markers of aging that you're talking about are just ways that people die.
I'd like to talk about your position on enhancement. I think what we discussed so far you wouldn't call enhancement, right?
No, it's interesting. I find enhancement to be such a fascinating term, and I think we are entering an age of enhancement because there's enhancement. There are many enhancement texts, and almost like this, the decisions that we will be making in the future about enhancement tech will be so different. I mean, you know, when you telescope down to the you think, for example, anti-aging, is that a useful category? Because in actual fact, I mean, I don't think it's the case necessarily that there are, as Aubrey said, you know, 7 deadly things. I mean, there are, I don't know, how many hundreds of thousands of millions of things? And sort of as we telescope down, we isolate these things. So I think an enhancement, the question about enhancement, I mean, I don't think there's any saying no to human enhancement. That there's living in a world which has it, and then you can be a rejectionist, or you can say, well, look, some things I reject, but some things I want. And so it's almost as if the label itself is a bit outdated.
But just the kind of gene editing we talked about, Peter's examples, that's not enhancement, right?
Well, I mean, again, just, you know, playing the tedious everyone hates us philosopher card. I mean, it depends what you mean by I mean that a root meaning of enhance is to improve. And as soon as if you've got a sore throat and I give you some antibiotics, I'm improving you. So you might think, well, what did you do? Well, I enhanced you.
I think, Patrick, what you're getting at is that, let's say that there's a baseline where everything is optimal. Everything that could be optimal for a human is optimal. But we could, through, for example, gene editing, actually go beyond that. Is that what you're saying, Patrick?
Yeah.
We're not just fixing some error that some of us don't have anyway. We're actually introducing something new that might alter what it means to be human, for example.
Yes, I mean, what it means to be human will change, isn't it? Because humanity is a movable feast. And so we're always changing. And it would sort of be, I don't know, even to sort of sit down and talk to, if time travelers came from the 1970s, what would they make of us? I mean, we would seem like absurd freaks.
Except we still listen to their music.
We still listen to their music.
We still listen to Pink Floyd.
Yep.
And
we listen to Pink Floyd, but in a way, I think if we were to sit down with, it would have to be, because I guess they're still alive, but Pink Floyd as they were then, and say from our 2020s perspective, this is what we like and don't like about your music. I think it would be, but we are veering off topic, aren't we? There, so.
well, I mean, I think the idea is that when we are really radically enhanced, then us today will be quaint and primitive compared to our future selves, and so. Yeah.
I mean, but is there an interesting analogy with it? Because there's nothing. I mean, are you going to Mars? Because that's an achievable goal. There is some sum of money that will get us humanity to Mars, and it's like if a perfect version of life on Mars would actually, I suspect, not involve being a gig worker for Starlink, or So I think it would be for working for Elon Musk. But we can idealize that, and we have a tendency to idealize. And I think, in a way, when we think about sort of technological, we do always progress. But when we often look at past idealizations and say, wow, Even the good things were different from there were definitely some good things. There were definitely some unanticipated bad things. There were always unanticipated bad things. And it's sort of like the way we think about it. We end up in a choice situation that's entirely different, having had that. So I guess it would be interesting to see, I mean, to talk, if the therapies work, you want to talk with your future rejuvenated selves. That's who you need to have that's who you need to have as your next guest. Yourselves. From a rejuvenated 2070.
I mean, you're the one who wrote Truly Human Enhancement. So what is the definition you're using in your book, and what is truly human enhancement?
Well, I was trying to make a nuanced point. And whenever philosophers get nuanced, it's always a mistake. So maybe that was a mistake. But just literally that there are costs. And often, and so, I mean, I don't know, if you're in a relationship, being human right now, we relate to other people, we relate to our own achievements. And that if you suddenly say, I mean, you guys are very smart, but I mean, in a way, if you were to say, and you've got some intellectual achievements, and you might be quite proud of them, you should be quite proud of them. But then there's someone who's taken, or a version of you, who's taken a pill that multiplies your intelligence by 1 billion, probably looks at those achievements and isn't very impressed by them. But it's like, it seems that those are and I think connections with other people are the kinds of things. So maybe the nuances are, maybe it's sort of like, beware overselling. I mean, beware the person who says, here's this thing, it's called Facebook, and once you get on that, you'll just fall in love with everyone, and there will be no war. And because it sometimes doesn't turn out to be that way, even though that's a very seductive picture. And I can remember thinking, this is it. I mean, if an Israeli and a Palestinian they meet on Facebook, well, they would realize how wonderful they are, and that would be the end of it. But it's often, you don't get, often the sales pitch is so successful that you don't do the thing that you should do, which is checking back to say, well, how much did Mark Zuckerberg really deliver of what he promised? He delivered a lot of money for himself.
And what happened to the people on Ozempic that looked so great last year?
Yes, yeah. Well, that's a recurrent pattern? I mean, that pattern is, I mean, gosh, how much, I mean, I'm not on Ozempic or anything like that, but it just seems that that's a familiar theme. That suddenly we are seduced by things that make life easy, and we like the idea of something we can inject that enables us to have just as many pizzas, and that's Ozempic, but it turns out to not be entirely like that. And there's a gap between what we get and our idealization.
I think you're making a good point, that our attention is grabbed by this technological fix, when we should pay attention perhaps to something closer or different.
Yes, and also, possibly, it's almost like people need to ask, in respect to the future, a lot of questions of the type, but what if that would be wonderful, but what if we don't get that? How will we be happy? What if something less than that is delivered? And we should assess that too. So, I mean, I think you guys obviously are very smart, but you should think, well, what happens if there is an anti-aging breakthrough But in a way, the world is structured such that only, this would be really bad, but only the bad people get the drugs and the therapies. And I think that would be morally terrible, and it doesn't have to happen, but it could happen. And it's so many things that are good considered in isolation, in that context, are not so good.
Yeah, but we're getting back to the argument: should we stop all uh, science in developing medicines?
No. What I was trying to say was something a bit different, which is just simply definitely get these things, but also take into account the world we may actually get. I mean, it would be wonderful if it's sort of the vision of, yes, we've ended aging and it's cheap and everyone's going to get it tomorrow. That would be wonderful,
D-
worth having, but in a way we might get another outcome, which is, yeah, well, no, only some people get it.
Do you know John K. Davis, who wrote New
Uh, I,
Methuselah?
yeah, I know. I've never met him.
He's in the prolongivist camp. He likes radical life extension, but he also spends a lot of time worrying about the distribution worries and the priority worries.
Yep. But isn't that important?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that may be the world we actually get. Because often the morally best worlds are not the ones we actually get.
I get your point, and the one that I'm thinking about is not really if we were to have medicine. The distribution problem has always been a problem, but I think there are also good examples of when we've managed to overcome that. But I think another development that we have now is artificial intelligence, and it seems to be two camps. It's either the existential risk camp that artificial intelligence is going to wipe us out, or it's the abundance camp that artificial intelligence is going to make everything magical and we'll all be rich. I think there's quite a good possibility that artificial intelligence might not wipe out humanity, and it might be very, very advanced, but that we don't. I think there's a bigger risk for the distribution problem there. Why do we assume that everyone will get rich and have abundance just because we have, let's say, super intelligence?
Yeah, no,
That's a question I haven't seen answered yet.
no, and I think that's a great question. That's the question we should be asking. And instead we're far too obsessed about Skynet. But really we should be saying, look at the way it's going now, and look at all of the money invested in it. I mean, how much, I encourage my students to use AIs, large language model AIs, because I think they're part of the world, and it's sort of like, so many of them, even young people say, oh, I don't like them, I find them distasteful. I said, well, good luck. Climate change is distasteful too, but you're living in a world with it, so you should find out about it. And the same applies to artificial intelligence. In actual fact, artificial intelligence, there are cool things you can do. But the thing I worry about is more, I guess, it's related to the distribution problem. All of the money that's invested in it, and I don't. I spend $0 on AI. And I think a lot of people have taken that option, which is not a way for people who've invested tons of money in these businesses to get paid. So I fear for the global economy when we realize that, yes, that's what we... But the interesting thing too is, in a way, it's, I think, a shared challenge for life extension advocates, is that everyone says, well, what will it be like if we have artificial superintelligence? Well, we can barely imagine that world, because by definition, we can't even imagine what an artificial intelligence will do or think. I mean, we couldn't really understand its reasons. I doubt. I mean, we could understand it about as much as my dog understands my reasons. Some of my reasons, but not the totality of my reasons. But I think it's a similar kind of thing that we don't. The world that you're talking about, it would be a fascinating world, and it's one that we can probably barely imagine. I mean, just think about, I don't know, the way an irritating virus like COVID-19 has changed the entire world in ways that no one would have expected.
Going back to the thing you said, I don't know if you intended it as an argument. You said that you flattered Peter and I and said we were intelligent, but compared to a future being, we would be like ants or very not very impressive. And I don't know, like, what are we supposed to feel about that? I mean, couldn't you say that if Federer came by and watched me play tennis this afternoon, in some sense, am I supposed to feel depressed or stop playing tennis? No. I mean, I don't know if you meant to make the argument that it would be kind of undermining to us if a post-human had such enhanced...
Well, to become post-human, it's like, I mean, I think even for someone like Roger Federer, I mean, well, I mean, I'm sure there are, Optimus Prime can probably eventually, when developed by Elon Musk, play much better tennis than Roger Federer ever could. And I guess applications of Optimus Prime technology to his could really replace his inefficient human limbs. But it's an interesting way for him to think about it. It's like he probably wouldn't, I don't know, it would be interesting. Or it would almost be an abnegation of his achievements on the tennis court.
Okay. I did have that feeling when the chess machines beat the human players. I did have the feeling that it was undermining of playing chess or spending time playing chess. I did feel that. Some people didn't, though. I mean, chess today has a revival. I think it's quite popular still. So
it's interesting how it's changed, though. Are you a chess player?
Oh, just a little bit. Yeah.
But it's interesting how the nature of the game has changed. So, like, chess play has become a lot more machine-like. As in, we've learned from. I mean, if you want to be world champion, don't get Gary Kasparov to train you. Train with your iPhone. I mean, it's a better chess player.
But is it a part of an argument, though? Is it a part of argument that we shouldn't go for the post-human cognition?
No, but it's an interesting thing. It's almost like, well, I believe it is. I mean, say if you're selling me a house, I suspect you probably want to sell me the house for as much money in the world, and I want to buy it for zero. And we arrive at a process where we end up hopefully paying the right amount. Oh, I pay the right amount of money for it, or something that I can. But that's a negotiation. And I feel almost like, so if Roger Federer was thinking, I could become a much better tennis player by replacing my human limbs with these robotic limbs. But it would be acceptable for him to say, well, I don't want that. I like this human way I play tennis. Now so he's accepting a future in which he'll be a worse tennis player. So, but it's almost like, I mean, I think those sides need to be represented. There are arguments on the other side that need to be heard.
I think it's a point you've made as well. I mean, it's enhancement or not enhancement, well, first of all, it's hard to define enhancement exactly. It's a scale. And then secondly, you can be for certain types, of course, and against others. And you can be more worried about some than others. So for me, when it comes to longevity, there are certain reasons that I think that type of enhancement, super longevity, that kind of enhancement is less problematic than, for example, manipulating emotions, for example. So I'm more towards a more bioconservative spectrum on that particular enhancement. I feel longevity enhancement, if I can make the case for that, is different in the sense that it's more like you get more money and you can spend it. That is, it doesn't determine you, it doesn't lock you in, it gives you freedom, it gives you more road to travel without kind of determining it. Yeah, sorry.
But wouldn't you want to be super happy as you travel that road? And that might require sort of emotional enhancement?
Well, I mean, I don't have a very simple view of why I want to live. I mean, so that had to be weighed against other things I want to be and achieve.
Yep. Indeed. Yes, but I think it's the weighing is an essential part of all of these things. So it's all about, there are so many things. If you have a list, there are lots of things that are desirable when viewed in isolation. But typically, almost always we make trade-offs.
I mean, yeah.
And human lives are trade-offs. And you decided to become an academic, which is probably a trade-off. You could have been richer had you chosen other options, but you made a trade-off. And I think that's how to make those trade-offs intelligently. And it's often a matter of saying, even a millennial lifespan is not kind of a trump good, that I should basically sacrifice any amount of any other good so I can achieve that. It's like, I want that good maybe a bit, but any time you pursue that, you're effectively not choosing other things. So that's the kind of nuanced thing. So it's sort of, when we think about enhancement, it's like if you right size modifications, how much weight should you give that? And I think not as much, not infinite weight. But yeah.
Let me guess. You don't consider your not existing to be a really bad thing.
I'm pretty confident that at some point in the future I won't exist. I'm going to go out there. Yeah. I mean, I will feel like such a fool if I meet that heat death of the universe that you've talked about and I survive it. I mean, I will be kicking myself, saying, "Gosh, it was so easy." But I'm guessing that I won't survive that, and I'm guessing my death will anticipate that.
Yeah, I don't know if you answered the question, Nick.
Well, I ask again, if I pose the question again.
Do you consider your non-existence a bad thing? Is it bad for you to cease to exist?
I think it's an interesting question, isn't it? You're saying, is it bad to die? I mean, I guess that's ceasing to exist. I assume that I will die. When I die, I will cease to exist. And I believe that will happen.
Yes.
So, and yes, I mean, if someone turns up with a gun and wants to shoot me now, I'm certainly going to try to avoid it. And I do believe that, so in a way, accepting that I will die is not choosing to commit suicide. So I accept, and I've accepted, so I'm a pro-deathist or whatever.
You don't have an abhorrence against the idea of non-existence.
No.
Annihilating, to be annihilated is not something that
No.
you feel abhorrence. No, I see.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. I would love to see a wide survey about people's intuitions about that.
Yes. But I think that people are not, I mean, in a way, they're considered life and all of that. I think people often don't think hard enough about what it is that they value about being alive. So I suspect we would give different answers to that question.
I think that those who do not have an abhorrence when they think about annihilation of being nothing or nothingness, I think it's easier to be a bit easygoing about things like, when you're 80, you had a good life, you die. Then if you do see a huge threat in personal annihilation, and of course annihilation of those you care about, which is a kind of different category. And if you do have this kind of what I would say an insight in the horror of annihilation, then, and what others would say, a kind of pathological fear of not being or something like that. These are the two sides. Then you don't need that much of an argument to understand that death is bad. It's almost an intuition, direct. But how can you have, if you think about nature, how can you really have no intuition that non-existence isn't bad?
Oh, let's talk about your dad. I mean, there probably were numerous ways in which you could have made his life better. If you thought about it, if you have you can go back in time, you could make various improvements. And I suspect you would say making his life longer would be important. But say if you had a fixed, finite budget to spend on these things, I mean, can you imagine saying, well, okay, he lived to this age, and it would have been better if he lived longer, but I've got a finite budget. I'm going to spend it on this other thing. I don't know, how good was your dad at tennis?
Not very good.
Oh, well, there you go. But he could have, okay, so he dies as he dies at his current age, but he was a composer?
Yeah.
A musician? Yeah. We could have improved, so turns out that he was a better tennis player than Roger Federer. That would be an improvement of his life.
I sense no urgency about the matter of death here.
No, but isn't it? It's because it's like, yes, no, I don't feel that urgency. And if you think that basically there are numerous ways I can improve my life, well, I suspect. Do you drink alcohol?
Yes.
Okay, well that's quite. How do you defend that?
Yeah, how do you defend that, Patrick?
I mean, I enjoy it, of course.
I think
it's very naturally affects my health.
Yeah, but yes, I liked that aside there. So I have an impression of you possibly drinking too much, but is that a misperception.
No, just the right amount at the right time.
Just the right amount at the right time. But maybe that's, I don't know, if you were to ask your
No,
dad,
but
maybe...
I see your point. We do make. I mean, even people in longevity industry fly to conferences and take risks because they rather fly to the conference than have a higher
Have a
chance
good
of
time
living.
and drink a couple of margaritas and wake up with a hangover. I mean, yeah, so people do all sorts of things that are life-shortening that seem to, by their very nature, not necessarily to be mistaken. But I'm sure that we'll be able to compare our drinking habits the next time we intersect at a conference.
Oh yeah, that would be that would be good. Yeah.
Brazil. Have you been to Brazil?
No, never.
That's great to go to. There are cool philosophers in Brazil.
I didn't know.
You can report back to me later.
Yes, go to Brazil.
So this is completely amazing. We've talked almost 2 hours. It's
And we ended on Brazil.
Yeah.
And we solved all of the problems.
Yeah, we have.
And
We always do that with our
Yes,
guests.
yes.
yeah.
So we have a question, and that is if you have any good books to recommend.
Well, the book, I walk around, I listen to audiobooks, and the book that I've been referring to actually is, I found deeply startling. I don't know if you can see this, if I was to put it there. It's called Doctored, and it's basically a science, the journal Science. It's a journalist working for the journal Science, and it's an eye-opener about incentives in medical research and how badly aligned with human flourishing they are, and how difficult it is to basically excise fraudulent research from that. So in a way, all of this fraudulent research that is produced to order, effectively by businesses selling therapies that we have will actually predict, they shorten lives, I gather. Some of the most prominent sort of anti-Alzheimer's therapies seem to have no measurable impact on your ability to recognize your granddaughter, but can produce brain inflammation, which can, yeah, so I found that to be an eye-opener. And it's sort of like when you look at, whenever humans do anything, yeah, there are incentives. Sometimes those incentives are evil.
It's interesting. There's actually a very big debate about this in the longevity community right now, and there's this whole movement called decentralized science that are actually, it's born out of that frustration that the incentives in the traditional ways are all warped.
They're all terrible. Yes,
Yeah.
to take, if you would, I think I would 100% support you if you could just somehow swoop in and suction out, I don't know how much of the money, the vast quantities of money that get spent on failing to treat Alzheimer's, when it seems that basically the scientific, the received model of what it is just fundamentally flawed. If you don't understand what the phenomenon is, you can spend as much money as you like. You will never have any beneficial effect on any human being. So yeah, take the money from the warmongers, spend that on life extension, but also from these people.
Amen. Thank you, Nicholas Agar.
Okay, I enjoyed it. That was great.